doing?
What's up, David?
It's good to see you, man. It's been a while.
It's been a long time. I'm not actually seeing you. I'm seeing a pixelated version of you on a Zoom.
Yeah,
Very different.
very different.
Here, I would much rather be hanging out somewhere, setting up cameras, smelling
Mm-hmm.
the coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
then there'll be an opportunity for that, I'm sure. I think we're getting closer. So,
cool.
um, but Eddie is my guest for this week. Eddie Heegan. Eddie and I met in acting class, I think, in 2004 or five. It was a long time ago. We were at a similar acting school. And then Eddie got involved with a film company out in Brooklyn. You were involved, you did a bunch of projects with them. And then I know you were kind of out doing your own thing for a while and you were auditioning and acting and getting some roles. You told me prior you had some experiences with that we would, I think would be interesting to chat about a bit. And then, but one thing I found very interesting was that you have begun to get into talking about deeper philosophical and spiritual things that have come to you over the years, and how your creative background as an actor kind of fed some of that. So I think, when I was seeing some of your posts, I was like, I think it'd be really cool to have Ed on. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, and also just to kind of see where he's at. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did and then what got you to this point now where you're feeling you have an interesting perspective and a different way of viewing kind of where we are as a society, um, and what you feel you can kind of give to that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's been a trip. The whole life experience. It's this kind of recognition that we're kind of plucked out of the sky by our parents or whatever. We're put into this flesh suit, never really asked for existence, but we're put here, and nobody seems to have a clue what's going on. Um, Inherently, just from observing the nature of our species, it's evident we're a nihilistic, suicidal, self-destructive, confused, violent species. And yet we live in a civilized way in many other ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's a testament to the psychological, how would you say, disease or condition, the state, if you will, of humanity. And to answer your question, the way that I originally got involved and really delved into a level of spirituality was because I was looking for relief from suffering. So by suffering, I'll give you an example of one of the ways in which I suffered. I was with a girl in college, and we were together for years, and I thought the grass was greener on the other side. We broke it off after several years, and I broke it off, and I went in so much time had lapsed after we had broken up, but I realized that the grass wasn't greener, and I wanted her back because she was really good to me. But the damage was done at that point. And going into like kind of a emotional tailspin of thinking that my happiness was residing in another, that the magical other was to complete me. And when that was taken away, the abandonment and the fear that it triggered within me was unprecedented at that point in my life. I had never experienced any kind of pain like that. And so for me, it was like, as someone who studied psychology in college, and I had this amazing professor named John Jerry Anthony Parenti, and he was this very liberal, effeminately homosexual, but boisterously vibrant character who taught classes on religion and philosophy and different belief systems. And it was a celebration, if you will, of all different types. Not getting too dogmatic, but more about the essence of spirituality. And I learned things about meditation and Tai Chi and Qigong and all this trippy stuff. And at the same time, I had traveled in college too, so I kind of had this like meeting different people and just sparked this curiosity. And so back to when I kind of went into this emotional tailspin, I'm thinking to myself, what is the solution to this pain, this suffering that I'm feeling, disconnected from this source, this love? Is it outside of me? Is it someone else? Is it within me? And so going on like kind of a classic psychotherapy type of modality of trying to understand the way the brain works, and reading things like this guy, James Hollis, who was a Jungian analyst, Jung versus Freud as primary schools of psychological thought, understanding our shadows, our complexes, our subconscious, and how we are this kind of complex bundle of preconditioned nerves that reacts to our surroundings based upon the conditioning of our past and our from birth.
Mm-hmm.
For the first several years, we kind of become conditioned in so many ways. And so it was just this kind of fascinating quest to understand myself as a person and the way that others, human behavior in general. And then once you start going down there, you realize that you come to know that you know nothing at all. That the way that we are and the way we think, the way we respond to life, we think we're in the driver's seat, and nothing could be further from the truth as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. We are not in control of much. And there's a mystery to it that I think a lot of people are afraid to embrace, that they want to know like their God is the God. My belief system is my belief system, and I'm going to do these rituals so I get into the magic place, and you guys fuck, man, because, you didn't. And that never worked for me. I was an altar boy and everything, but that never worked. This whole idea of eating the magic cracker and drinking the blood. I mean, even the concept of this kind of, 3,000-year-old zombie, and you eat his flesh and drink his blood and you have eternal life. It's inherent. If you told someone that today and they didn't grow up in it, mm-hmm. It's kind of strange, and it always felt that way to me. And so I guess my spirituality and that journey has become maybe a way to maybe find my own religion, develop my own rituals, and create my own way of relating with the natural world, and then the mystery of where we come from and where we go, if we go anywhere at all. Mm-hmm. And so really it's been about just embracing that mystery, studying it, understanding, connecting with people from all over the place. And that's been one of the most amazing experiences, connecting with people who similarly explore these concepts and really understand in a fun way just kind of how to explore the nature of our species and this existence. I just find it all fascinating. And so really that's where a lot of it, the genesis was to understand, manage, and reduce my suffering. And then the other side of that was this kind of like Pandora's box in a beautiful way of embracing this mystery of what it means to be a human being.
So this started prior to you getting involved in acting. This was stuff you were working on in college. So by the time I knew you, you had already started a lot of these kind of explorations, right?
Sometimes you don't go to the dentist if you don't have a toothache. But if you got a toothache, you're gonna get to the dentist. Mm-hmm. The other one is that might help to kind of explain that is there are no atheists in foxholes. Mm-hmm. You heard that one?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Something about suffering sometimes prods us into that. And so my answer to your question is, when I find things are going well, I kind of just ride that out. And then usually when there's suffering, it tends to put me into deeper and more of a, maybe a need to understand more of in more of an esoteric way. So I'll go into trying to find and curate information. But there were gaps of time in my life where I was not doing any of that.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, what I was doing was, when I was suffering, I was drinking booze and trying to fuck as many women as I could, because, and I was also running into burning buildings, and part of like a way to almost like, well, I was fireman for 14 years.
That's right. Right.
And between the adrenaline of firefighting, the chase, the numbing through copious amounts of booze, not you, I'll speak for myself. I attempted, like so many other people have, to manage and mitigate my problems by numbing and distracting. Thought I could, maybe if I slept with enough women, I'd fill that hole in my soul.
Right.
I would feel that I wouldn't feel that abandonment, or that insecurity, or that pain of aloneness. Like if I could capture that, so I'll pursue the orgasm, and I'll try to take, even if I'm not reciprocating, even if I know someone likes me and wants maybe to have something more, I would just kind of take from them, because I wasn't capable of, essentially I wasn't loving myself enough, or if I was at all,
right,
to be in a healthy relationship. So there was this kind of dysfunction built into the way that I pursued women, in a pathological way, to try to, again, just in an effort to numb and distract from maybe some loneliness or some despair, or, you're going in, your friends were killed on September 11th. I had my face cut open with a razor blade from the middle of my forehead down to my neck. I had my ear cut in half during a bar fight. These traumas were never dealt with. And as a matter of fact, a kid growing up in Brooklyn, if you were to, show a chink in your armor and maybe express that you were having some sadness or difficulty, I mean, you'd quickly be told, stop being a faggot. Don't be such a pussy. Man up, or whatever it might be. And you get to a certain age in your life and you realize that it actually takes a lot of bravery to be vulnerable, and to be able to express sadness, and to really be able to be honest about true feelings. But most people feel that, I wouldn't say most people, but a lot of men that I've come in contact with feel that that's emasculating. And it's not that I just disagree. It's also that as I've gotten older and I've come to understand myself, I've also come into working professionally with people to help them heal their own traumas. And what you recognize is a lot of the suffering that people endure are as a result of traumas they've never resolved. And that takes real work, and it takes being vulnerable. It takes doing a personal inventory of what you're really going through, like no numbing and distracting, to actually sit there and allow your feelings to be felt, even the ones that you don't want to feel or admit.
right.
And yeah, so it becomes kind of now this thing where it's not about me anymore. It's about my capacity and potential to serve others through my own life experience, and try to integrate that in a way that can be helpful to help other people who are suffering. Get back a bit.
We were talking a little bit before we started up, just about accepting the light and the dark, to life, the ups and downs. And, if you're always spending your life trying to run away from the things that make you uncomfortable, you're denying an aspect of who you are, or the experience in general. So it's almost like you have to embrace that, or you try to cover it up. I have my own experiences as well, but in your case, you try to cover it up with drinking and women and things like that, or running into a burning building. You're kind of uh, looking at doing those things to um, distract perhaps away from
Mm,
the other stuff. So
absolutely.
was acting like one of those thrills for you that kind of helped you to avoid, or did acting kind of bring you to this realization by studying humanity, so to speak?
That's a loaded question. I know you knew that already. That's probably why you asked it. That's interesting. I like it. It's like the chicken or the egg, or the life imitating art, art imitating life. I don't know. That's a really good question, Dave. I really thought about that like that. Um, I'd like to at least start and address that by simply saying that we've been robbed,
Hmm. Who's been?
all of us. And we touched on this a little bit, and this is something that's resonant within me all the time. So you and I, if we go back just a couple thousand years, and then take millennia spanning back, if we lived near each other, we would be part members of a tribe.
Hmm.
We would get up in the morning, go out, we would hunt, we would fish, we would work the land, we would harvest vegetables, whatever we needed to eat, water, chop wood, keep ourselves warm in the winter. Sounds very commonplace to say it, but we don't do any of those things anymore, obviously. If there was a neighboring tribe that was coming to attack our tribe, me and you would be next to each other, and we would spill blood and scalp, kill, eviscerate, however, bludgeon another to death to protect each other. I would kill to protect your family. I would even die if it meant I could protect our village. And you would do the same for me.
Right.
And I never needed to say, I love you, Dave. I didn't need to say it to anybody in the village. We didn't need to say it, because inherently, when you go back after war with the spoils, you go back with the victory of the hunt, and you harvest in these ritualistic ways. And women are nursing children, and the fire is built with the wood that's been chopped, and everybody is warm, and everybody's fed, and people are protected. Like, there's an inherent understanding of our life. It's not even an understanding. You don't need to say I'm not sure what my life purpose is. I'm not sure if he loves me or not. Like, none of those things were in question, because they were inherent to our existence.
Mm-hmm.
If to be born is to be part of this, you didn't exist. You didn't survive. It was an interdependent way of living that existed forever. And now people are depressed because when they're mourning sadness, or they're celebrating life, or they're going through something, they feel like they're disconnected, but they don't know why. And so they think something is inherently wrong with them. But meanwhile, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that they've been removed from their environment and it's like taking an animal out of the wild and putting it in and then expecting that somehow it's going to, we've domesticated some animals, but the truth be told, in some ways we are these primal animals being forced to live in societies and wear fabric strips of fancy things around our necks to kind of signal to it's become this weird perverted way of interacting and connecting that really is not connected to procuring sustenance for ourselves, through connecting with nature and being out in the sun and using our physical bodies to actually work together as a team to hunt an animal, to feed our village. It's none of that is happening. And so that I just wanted to say, to set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in those villages I just described were like campfires, and information was handed down from generation to generation, vertically. That ultimately was pre-printing press and cameras and all that stuff. So information, wisdom stories, parables, fables, fairy tales, whatever you want to call them, they were handed down through imagery, through dance, through song, through storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what filmmaking is to me. It's connected to this long, deep lineage of storytelling for the sake of, again, back to it, understanding what the fuck it is this whole experience is about, understanding the nature of what it means to be a human being and be on a planet hurtling through the universe, and really what it means to not understand what it means, to the mystery of it. It creates this need to kind of understand it. And I believe a lot of the filmmaking and story, so inherently the acting for me was never about fame or money or making it in Hollywood. It was about this need to tap into this ancient lineage and of traditions and customs where we transfer information, and this need to kind of stay connected to that tradition. So that's the way I would say that I look at it now. When I was doing it back then, and that's why it's a loaded question. When I was doing it back then, did I think of it in those terms? Absolutely not. I was driven in ways that I didn't understand, and I probably still don't fully understand now.
Yeah.
So it's a constant evolution.
So when you said that we've been robbed, do you feel that we've, in our modern society and culture, that we've lost
Yeah.
an element of that storytelling, of the story around the campfire? Because someone else brought it up. You and I had a conversation, I think about 2 months ago, when I asked you to do this, and we talked for a great time. And I said, I actually wish I had recorded that. But
now the strongest themes are always resonant, so you'll always tap into them if we have a good enough conversation.
yeah, no, but so one of the things that was interesting was someone else, one of the other guests a couple of weeks ago, had mentioned about the campfire, and about stories and campfires, and why certain films resonate nowadays in the movie theater and other ones don't. So do you feel that we've lost something in where we are today as far as storytelling and the campfire and that experience as a tribe? Because there's a lot of tribalism that goes on nowadays, and it's a lot of negative tribalism. It's, I want to destroy your tribe because you offended me because you wore, Velcro sneakers instead of shoelaces. I mean, it's gotten insane. So do you feel that we've lost something with that, what you were talking about, where we've been robbed in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's apparent.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's apparent that I think more importantly, to really tie it in properly to creativity, and we can even go to the music industry and use certain aspects of hip hop as a hyperbolic example of the exploitation. But yeah, I do believe that tying those two together is an integral part of understanding the nature of how we interact with culture, because the culture that is produced, the culture that comes out of traditional tribalism is inherently traditional because it operates within a lineage that's kind of a closed container.
Mm-hmm.
You were your tribe, you were Clan LaRosa, and you were part of it. You were the son of this one and the grandson of this one and whatever it was, and that's why all that shit was a big deal.
Right.
Even Game of Thrones type level, like if the bastard son was like exile, like really that bloodline and lineage was like a kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
The societies we live in are not obviously containers of tribes. Tribalism is more based upon now, it seems, viruses of the mind to some extent. And when I say a virus of the mind, I don't mean it in a pejorative. I just say that the information is like a contagion to some extent. Mm-hmm. Myself included. I can talk about, information, esoteric, religious, dogmatic information that maybe, at some points I believe. So it's not limited to manipulation, but back to the creative aspects and the society we live in, when you take that authentic, the purity, the intent of the storytelling. So let's say an elder was going to actually transfer information to young David. Maybe you were 12 or 13, and we were going to initiate you into the tribe, and you were going to start hunting and fishing, and you were going to have to be a brave warrior, and we were going to have to teach you to go through the nights without your mother if you were scared of the dark, and just kind of these rites of passage, these rituals, if you will, that we no longer engage in. Mm-hmm. It's like a closed container of, and these are kind of like earned, and it still exists. I mean, that's essentially what the communion or the bar mitzvah, or it still exists on some level, but it's a watered down kind of, it's a shell of what it used to be, to actually have an actual rite of passage.
Right.
And when you talk about society as a whole now, the creative process has then been exploited and manipulated to the point now where they're not concerned about using this platform to disseminate information that is beneficial to the emotional, spiritual well-being of the species as a collective, or even on the individual level. The platform has been exploited to benefit the consumer model, and the corporations are just tapping into whatever it is can addict as we started the conversation first off, this reactive bundle of neurons. And now, as you can see, all content is being created to addict that part of our brain in the way that candy lights up our tongue. And so essentially, they're by nature within a capitalist society, and that's not me saying that we should be communist. Let's call the facts the facts. Living in a capitalist society wherein the corporation's ultimate agenda is to make the most amount of money, this faceless, nameless corporation has one goal, and that is to maximize profit. To maximize profit is then to use a platform like filmmaking, like music, that used to be inherently a traditional form of transferring information, and to hijack that vehicle and now use it just to make money. Mm-hmm. Even if that means I'm going to write a song called Wet Ass Pussy, and Cardi B is going to make that the #1 song, and Rolling Stone is going to fucking sanction it and everything. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rolling Stone is going to sanction this as if this is like a legitimate. And dude, I'm no prude, man. I listened to gangster rap growing up. I can recite lyrics from Cypress Hill about fucking murder and violence, and I can tap into those aspects of the culture. But we can't pretend like morally, ethically, emotionally, spiritually, we're headed in any direction that we should feel good about. Mm-hmm. Quite the opposite. So the point is, going back to kind of like understanding the genesis of what it means to be collaboratively creative in an artistic and expressive way, as an inheritance from tradition, and then to see that to be a part and parcel of the corporatized system, that you must renounce certain aspects of it, or some aspects of the value of it. And so it kind of puts you into a position where you're like, do I really want to make it in an industry that ultimately is, run by a guy like Harvey Weinstein, who, if you suck him off, he'll give you a part in his movie? Mm-hmm. And how does that adequately honor the potential of what films, as you and I as film lovers and filmmakers, how much does that diminish the value and the potential of what that art form used to be and could truly potentially be? Right. And how do we reconcile that for the future?
Mm-hmm. Do you have any ideas on how to reconcile that?
Yeah, well, look, this is proof of concept, Dave. We're doing it.
Right.
You and I are, instead of going out there and blowing each other's heads off and trying to sensationalize the latest model of what it means to be a popular movie in Hollywood, or whatever the modern industry is called, we're utilizing the same technology that people are masturbating to, free porn to watching cat videos, to kids doing TikTok dances, to, there's it's like this weapon. It can be weaponized. It's this powerful tool. What is it? Is social media the worst thing in the world, or is the way we're using it? Like, fire can be used to burn something, but it can also be used to create the steam engine that it creates power if harnessed and directed in the right way. This conversation is, if it's a living, a moving organism that we're part of, this conversation is a healthier part of that, using that technology, the World Wide Web. We're not near each other, but we've stayed connected, and we're capable of communicating in a real visceral way right now. And we can choose to use the platform, the technology, how we want. We can write, and here's the birth of the concept. We could write a one act about guys that sit down to do a podcast and get into a crazy argument, but they pull themselves back from it. And maybe there's a few scenes like, can this become a way of modern storytelling? Could this be a feature? Could you hit play on Netflix, and all of a sudden this screen pops up and you watch a conversation between two dudes that are trying to have a conversation about one thing, and then it turns out to be something completely different? Where can you explore the potential of this technology? Even social media, it's been weaponized, and it's tapping into our kids' brains in a way that is highly addictive and toxic and corrosive. The empirical data is clear. I mean, young girls committing suicide at unprecedented rates. Like, this shit is real. So like we need to get a hold on this shit too. This is not about, oh, I can't make feature films like Scorsese did, I'm so bummed about it. No, this is about, no, there's an opportunity for something so much more vastly powerful happening that may not yield us fame and recognition, but there's a potential there. And the potential now is being tapped into in a corrosive and toxic way. And I think it's up to the artists, maybe even a renaissance post-COVID, to take some of the power of this powerful, international, global platform, take some of it back, and let's try to use it in a creative and a focused way, with the intent to connect, to learn, to understand. It's our responsibility. It's our obligation.
The thing that I think I found most interesting about social media, and you spoke to it, was the fact that I've equated it very much to like a gun, in the middle of the street, and a gun alone in the middle of the street is an object. It's mass, it's material, it's a bunch of atoms keeping itself together. What you choose to do with it is what gives it an identity. You know what I mean? And social media is very similar. I see a lot of people attacking and lighting each other up constantly. Look, I do too from time to time. Something will get in my craw, and I'll, you get into that mood, and you want to get it into it with somebody, right? You're gonna learn them good. You're gonna teach them the right ways of the world.
I'm sure we've changed so many minds.
Yeah, until they shut off Facebook and then leave, and then they forget about it because it doesn't matter. It's all bullshit. But that doesn't. And even with that being said, I guarantee at some point I'll have a discussion with somebody. I try not to do it because it's you walk away from it and you always feel like an
Guilty.
idiot.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, and I bet you they walk away and feel like an idiot too most times.
Yeah.
But the thing that I really found interesting about this podcast idea was to use something that is considered primarily negative now, which is Facebook. I don't even go on Twitter because I just felt that was a lost cause. But actually use it for something positive, like these podcasts, as a way to say like, look, these are conversations between human beings talking about their different perceptions and understanding of this world, and especially this time. You and I grew up in a similar decade of the 70s and 80s, which was very, very, very different. I don't know if it was a fantasy of, goodness, or if it was 100 or 50%. It was probably a little 50-50. It was some good, some bad. But I look at the times that we live in now, and it's like, wow. Sometimes you do feel like you're in the twilight zone if you allow yourself to get pulled in by what the media and film and social media are telling you. So, it becomes it can be a very dangerous way, because you can begin to define who you are based on posts. How many people like your post? Did your family like your post? Your family now, your family has an issue with you, so they don't like your posts as a way to get back at you. Just
Mhm.
tons and tons of bullshit. Where it used to be, you found out during Christmas or Easter if someone liked you or not, because they wouldn't talk to you at the family, party. That's how you
Yeah.
knew. Or they'd give you like the stink eye, or from my other side of my family, the evil eye, Um, what do you feel? What are your thoughts? You feel like we're in a very interesting, I mean, it sounds like it based on what you've said, but a very interesting and hard to relate to time? Or do you feel that this is a breakthrough time? It's a time that is like the beginning of some kind of awareness, higher alertness for a element of the population, not everybody, but humanity has gone through these stages of spiritual development. Um, who we are now is very different from who we were 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years before that, it was very different. 1,000 years before that, it was very different. So we seem to go through these growth periods. Do you feel we're on the verge of one of those growth periods now?
Yes. And I think it's the nature of this life experience. We tend to personalize what we go through because it's much it's an egocentric way of looking at the universe from our perspective. We don't have another perspective.
Hmm.
But backing up a few steps to an earlier part of how you posed that question, when you indicated that we grew up in the 70s and the 80s, you're there is an aspect of how we grew up that is vastly different than any other time in history. Dude, when you and I were born, video games did not exist. When
Hmm.
you and I were born, the internet did not exist. Home computers did not exist. Cable TV, I didn't have cable TV. You might have, if you were early on, who knows? Jersey kid. Um, Smartphones did not exist. Social media did not exist. We can go on and talk about, but we remember a time when all of these things did not exist. Now, everybody that's dead obviously never even knew this stuff ever existed. But everybody moving forward will never, ever, ever know life without them.
Hmm.
They are inherent.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever see kids in a stroller. Sometimes these kids are fucking jacked up on dopamine dumps from stimulating and bright, like
Yeah.
we we
Andy
we
Crush.
we cannot compare. And I'm not trying to do this to be grandiose or special. I'm talking about, you literally can't compare pre-internet, pre-smartphone. Well, let's just call it pre-internet,
Hmm.
because the smartphone is just an extension, obviously, of that.
Yeah.
But we are living in a time where one of the most significant changes, and not only significant change, but the exponential rate at which the technology is, like when the printing press was invented, it was amazing, but it took a long fucking time for all those printing presses to get built and actually produce so it eventually happened. But now it's like the PC, the internet, and now everybody's got within a couple of decades, everybody's got a supercomputer in their hand.
Yeah.
It's like that time frame from which it all happened within our life to actually witness it, I find is amazing. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the difference between our species from those that existed in the time previous and those that do not.
Mm-hmm.
I have two children. I have a 14-year-old boy and a 17-year-old daughter. They are different people. The way that they interact with each other is vastly different than 14 and 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds communicated when I was that age.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's always the case to some extent, but specifically regarding growing up using devices as a primary communication tool as opposed to making eye contact and watching that pregnant pause. Mm-hmm. And thinking about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. But when you say it, there's no taking it back and editing it. And tapping into the authenticity of what you're feeling so that you can learn to communicate effectively. A lot of that stuff is being now integrated into the way that so it's one thing to use the communication tool, and it's a completely other thing to lack the ability to have a conversation with someone where you do make eye contact and you do communicate in a really visceral and natural and organic way, because it's a skill set that we assume that the child is going to learn. But when these devices interrupt that process, I worry about what it means for, dude, I got actually a good example of this. A friend of a friend's daughter is away at college in Long Island.
Okay.
And gets pulled over by the cops, or something happened where the police were involved. And the girl is saying to this cop, and the cop is like, some 25-year-old kid or whatever, "Don't you know who my uncle is? My uncle is Marty Scorsese." And legitimately, it's Marty Scorsese's niece, legitimately. Mm-hmm. But this guy had no clue who he was. And like, my point simply being, when you talk about these cultures, and specifically it being someone like Marty Scorsese, who I think is kind of a quintessential representation of the industry that we loved and grew up on, there is such a disconnect that something that's considered epically mainstream within our lexicon mm-hmm. is something that a 25-year-old has no connection to, no relevance. So you wonder, when speaking in conversation, when you speak passionately about something, like if you spoke passionately about film, about feature filmmaking and the dialogue-driven, character-driven narrative of the feature film, to a 20-something-year-old who wasn't studying film, could they even understand your language?
Right.
Could they even get it? Mm-hmm. Could they? They don't have the language.
Yeah. Well, they also don't have the life experience to get, like, we had a script analysis done for one of our scripts that we're currently working on, but two. And both times they were young 20-somethings. And these stories were about people in their 30s and 40s coming to that point in their life where they're like, hey, all my dreams haven't come true. What are my next steps? And to these writers, or these script analysis people, they were critiquing elements of the script because they simply didn't understand it. They didn't have the life experience. And I think that goes to what you're talking about, which is that, we have those little clusters of knowledge that we are a part of and define our reality, but they don't necessarily define everyone else's reality. And one of my past guests, Sal, brought up a really good point about the campfire storytelling and how much everything has changed, and it goes to the internet again. Um, in the respects that, back in the 90s on Thursdays, most of us were going to be watching Friends, Seinfeld, and possibly ER. And then on Friday, in school or college or job, whatever, we'd all be talking about it. People that like sci-fi on Sundays would be talking about the X-Files. And then people talking about it at the water cooler
I
on
remember
Monday.
sitting down on like a Friday night to watch The Wizard of Oz as a kid
Yeah,
with
yeah,
like a bowl of popcorn in your lap.
yep,
It
yep.
was an epic event. Yeah.
Yeah. And you and everyone else, because there were three stations for the most part, everybody else was going to be experiencing the similar thing. And what Sal said, he said, my son now may be watching the same show as his friends, but his friends are watching it on Sunday and he's watching it now. And we've kind of lost that. Um, Everyone's always had their own cluster, but there used to be a town square, I think we kind of all went to,
Uh,
and that gave us a sense of, I think, cohesion as a group, as a species. And I think what the internet has kind of done, unintentionally, because it's not a living organism, it's a thing, um, is it's kind of divided that out where we are all over the place now. We have something going on over in here and something. It's almost like when you were in college, you'd go to a big party, and everyone's bombed and blitzed out of their mind, and every room had something different going on in it. And you didn't always know like what the hell was going on in all the rooms. That was part of the excitement of going to a house party. You go in, you're like, I don't know what the hell is going on in this room. You open the door and you go, oh, I don't want any part of that. You shut the door. But then there might be another room. You're like, yeah, I'm down with that. That's cool. But then you had the main living room where everyone ultimately had to come because there was the front door. Everyone had to go in
yeah.
that way unless they were jumping out windows. And we've kind of lost the living room. We've kind of lost the front door is a little confusing to find. And because now it's on the sides of the house, it's on the front, it's in the back, go through the garage, whatever. But we've kind of lost that living room, that community space. Um, and I think that it's very interesting. I don't think we've ever lived in a time, and as you said, where we have had this kind of technology, this amount of growth this quickly, where you can get information like that. I used to have to go to the library with my library card, go look through the Dewey Decimal System.
Dewey Decimal
Yep.
System.
To find the book of what I wanted to read, to find out, or an encyclopedia. Nowadays, it's like, there's the phone. Let me check out Google. Who's, but oh, okay. I got the information. So it's great in that sense because you can get information right away. But then there's the flip side, of everybody. There, like I'm always very curious on what is going to bring people back to the living room, to that campfire. I don't have the answer. I have no idea. But I'm very interested because I think one of the reasons why I think people bicker in the way that they do is because they're simply not used to this level of. I think the technology has advanced faster than our brains have been able to adapt to it. So we've kind of missed a step, and we're trying to learn. I mean, look, in the 1800s, clothes changed, medicine still sucked, and you kind of hoped you didn't stub your toe on a nail because you were probably fucked. And then in the early 1900s, penicillin and medicine and all these other things, and suddenly it's like, oh, technology. What's this stuff? What's this electricity stuff we got going on now? Oh, cars, planes. I mean, in less than 100 years, we went from not being able to fly to landing a man on the moon. It was at 70, 69, 70 years. That's pretty amazing. Humanity never had that level of growth. So I'm very fascinated to see what is going to bring us back to that living room. You have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I like the metaphor of the town square better than the living room, although I appreciate it definitely helps us to understand it in a more natural setting,
Yeah.
and there's so much truth to it. And then yet you will go all the way to the other end of that kind of statement kind of question, and we're talking about modern advances like antibiotics and modern plumbing that allowed our species to procreate at a rate in which we can now clearly see that the world is vastly overpopulated and we are contributing to our ultimate demise. So that's a lot in there. Let's start with the idea of the living room or the town square. The answer to what will make people come back to the living room is the same thing that made me go back, I believe, is suffering. Suffering. I believe en masse we are suffering from some form of mental suffering, some emotional suffering. And I believe a lot of that suffering, again, we are unaware of the genesis of why we suffer, because we've been robbed. But we're not aware that we've been robbed of it because it's not like we remember the village. Again, we remember the village a bit, right? We remember what it was like to go out and play in the big wheels. We remember what it was like to go outside and get muddy. We remember what it was like to ride around the back of a station wagon and not wear a seatbelt. We remember the pre-internet days, but the kids growing up now, they will have nothing to compare it to. They will have no frame of reference for that understanding. Yes, that gap of the exponential rate of technology advancing, I mean, Jesus. And the nature of the technology is that it's like a spiral. That the more the technology advances, the faster it goes. And now it's advancing at such a rate that again, a computer like this, first of all, never existed 20, 30 years ago. But if and when it did at one point, it was the size of a city block.
Mm-hmm.
And so the technology is advancing at a rate that definitely our brains as these, because we're animals, straight up and down. Sorry if somebody's watching this and you don't want to accept this fact. That's totally fine. But if society went downhill and there was some sort of natural disaster, people would get real quick. They would become savage animals really quickly. So don't think that just because you're a law-abiding citizen that we all agree on these rules to keep everybody safe and society organized. But we are animals, and if put under a certain amount of duress or put into a situation where we feel we are threatened, we feel like something is unsafe, we're going to react in natural ways. And I do truly feel like we're going to do a little bit of both. We're going to do some regressive, primal kind of reacting to some of these advancements in technology. And also, we're going to evolve to kind of integrate and get more used to them. So now you and I may return to the actual campfire and be like, dude, we're going upstate, we're chopping wood, we're lighting a fire, we're going to go hunting, and we're going to practice staying connected to the old ways. Meanwhile, our kids, the future generations, they won't even, again, have a reference point. So their brains will literally evolve to become more integrated into the cyber living room.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer to your question is, unfortunately, I don't think we're going back anywhere. I don't think the genie is going back in the bottle. Does that mean that we're not going to live in primal, natural, traditional ways? No, it means that for as long as there are people that exist that want to do that, like myself and possibly you, we'll go and do that. But that might also be, it might be evolved out of our species, and the future could be a dystopian kind of post-apocalyptic. I mean, look, the way that we're going right now, it's unsustainable.
Mm-hmm.
The projections are clear. Sorry to be a doom and gloomer, but the reality is that a lot of the places where people live right now, they're not going to be able to live. the climate projections, the increase in temperature, the increase in the sea levels, are going to make those places uninhabitable. We are not going to have enough clean, fresh drinking water, arable land that has nutrient density to support crops that can yield us the nutrients necessary to survive on the level and the mass that we are right now. I think that a lot of our energy is going to have to be redirected to either undoing or figuring out a way to inhabit this planet after we've caused such catastrophic damage for so many generations, and for people to really take an account of what it means to be alive and to use this planet as a source of sustenance. And I think that's also going to take some control of the population. And what I mean by that is people recognizing that, just having tons of children is not necessarily a great idea. How do you stop people from having kids, especially people who are already impoverished? We're hardwired because, again, we're fucking animals. Guys want to inseminate females, and females want to carry a child because we're wired to survive as a species. It's kind of simple.
Right.
So I don't really know. I mean, I can't predict the future, but I do think it's going to be a combination of everything you've mentioned. Some people are going to return to the living room. Some people are not going to get it. And ultimately, we're going to evolve in a way that's going to integrate both some of the traditional and some of the technological advances, both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remains to be seen, bro. It's still very much a mystery.
Yeah. No, it is. Absolutely. I guess that's part of the fun, is that it is a mystery.
I think it's beautiful than a lot more. I think the mystery, if we allow it to be, can be much more beautiful than anything that we pretend to know. I think embracing the mystery of the fact that we're, again, plucked out of the sky and put in these flesh suits, and we're flying around on a ball of dirt through the universe, really no idea why we're here or what we're doing. And the fact that nobody talks about this on a regular basis. We talk about the Kardashians. Yeah, I think it's a trip, and I think where we came from, where we go, potentially the God, the existence of in the cosmos, and our relative position in relation to that, I think that the whole concept of it is far more mysterious and fascinating than the story of going to heaven and angels and wherever else we might believe in more dogmatic versions. I think it's a beautiful way to embrace the mystery of what it means to be alive.
I agree. I think so as well. You had mentioned that you work with people. Do you want to do a plug? Do you have a business that you're doing?
So the work that I do is by referral only. It's the nature of wanting to stay connected in an organic way. So that, like, if someone had an issue and they didn't know who to turn to, they'd say, "Hey, go, speak to this person." So if someone watches this, if there's someone that knows you and they want to reach out to me on social media, right now on social media, I go by at Ed Woodstock, EDWOODSTOCK. And you can follow me. I put out sometimes just some snippets of knowledge of something that might be resonating within me, or sometimes I'll do short videos, or I also like to integrate some of the other teachings of people that have much more knowledge than myself. So for me, it's about using, again, back to what we were talking about before, using technology in a responsible way. And so I would be, for anybody that's watching this, I'd be interested, if you're interested in any of the topics we've discussed, to continue a dialogue with people who really are interested in the discourse of what it means to have an open dialogue. And if someone out there is suffering and wants to understand more about the nature of their suffering and the understanding of that and how to manage and mitigate that, there are lots of tools and modalities and resources that many people have gone through these experiences before that can really be a helpful shortcut in kind of helping to manage some of the challenges that we will deal with, whether it's people that we love. Right now, I'm dealing with end-of-life issues with my parents. My mom has dementia and Alzheimer's. And so sometimes we find ourselves in similar predicaments, in which case we can really help each other, to see each other's pain, to recognize each other's struggles, and to be there just to kind of allow each other to kind of maybe work through some of these stronger emotions. So if that resonates with anybody, if somebody recognizes that they're going through a tough time and they feel disconnected and they want to connect with people who understand these things and can help them to alleviate their suffering, definitely reach out to me on social media, and either I can help you directly through yoga meditation, and essentially what that is teaching people how to use their physiology through breathing to recognize that the way that we react to our environment can create a physiological cascade of neurotransmitters that can put us into a state of fight or flight, that can make us feel really anxious. And having some tools at your disposal and staying connected with people that understand these things and can really help work through these things can be a really valuable resource. So anybody that's interested in any of these topics can feel free to reach out to me on social media.
Is that mostly through Instagram or also Facebook?
It's through both right now.
Okay.
I just like you discussed, I struggle with, is it something that I want to be so regularly connected with? But I do recognize it as a tool for right now. I do use Instagram and I do use Facebook, and for right now, I still find them useful tools to connect with people within the community.
Cool. I'll put those links below. So if anybody
Beautiful.
is watching this and they're interested, they can reach out to you
Yeah.
directly. And I want to thank you for coming on. This was I had a feeling this was going to be a very deep and informative conversation, and you certainly delivered on that. So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. And just one more thing I'd like to mention.
Yeah.
Down the road, I will be organizing and running actual men's group. And I'm not at liberty to advertise about it right now, but we're working on programming, and it should probably be out next fall at some point. So if you do follow that social media, it will be available. And that will be a group, relatively intimate, probably under 12 or 10, of people that meet regularly. And it probably is going to be a men's group at this point, because I feel like there's a lot of guys out there that need an outlet and a place to come to the town square and connect. So stay tuned for that as well. And dude, I'm so glad we were able to reconnect, and I would love to stay connected, and maybe we could talk about developing a project where we could do some sort of even a film concept as sort of integrating it with the technology of social media and Zoom. Let's do a little experiment. Let's collaborate, brother.
Sounds good to me, man.
All right, man. Awesome talk, Dave. Great talking to you, brother.
Same here, man. I will. Thanks for coming on board, and I'll chat with you soon.
All right, man. Be well.
All right, you too.